Let's make something beautiful today. So it's all about chain today and how you can incorporate it in earrings, not just for your necklaces, not just for your bracelets. It adds such a fantastic texture and movement to earrings. So that's what I've been really into lately. You can see these silver pieces here that I finished this set. I got one earring done on this one and I haven't got to the other one yet. But we have still one other design that I came up with that I haven't even done yet. So we're going to work on these today. And let me show you other ways that chain can be incorporated. These are for my daughter because we all know by now that she's a gold freak. She loves gold and she's all into burgundy, everything. And so how this is, it is a stud that has a loop connector hanging from the bottom. And I took a little bit of chain. Look at this lovely bar chain that has some flattening and extra detail to it. Added a little bead link. These are carnelian and continued with a longer piece of chain that comes back and connects to the ear backing. And so you get a wonderful dynamic of this is in the front of the ear and the movement continuing on into the back. A really fantastic way to use chain that with a little more dimension and dynamic. And very simply, is an ear hook with a piece of chain instead of say like a bar of wire that's going to be more stiff. You've got all this wonderful movement in this, and I just put another bead that she loved. She's into these burgundies and berries and wine colors, and of course gold again, and finished it off with a little more prominent head pin on the bottom of that. So that is an option as well. Incorporate chain into areas where there would be just an extension of wire just to give it some movement. So we're going to work on this design, this one, and the one that I haven't even done yet. I'm going to do it with you live on camera to see what happens. Will I run into any problems? I love doing that because it helps you discover what do you do when you run into a problem? How do you solve it? So that's going to be interesting and fun to see how that turns out. Now, as for tools, I've just got everything out. A wonderful selection of your chain nose and cutters. Of course, I always have my bail pliers. I've got nylon pliers. One thing you see for here, I've got a hole punch. I also have this tool that I am using. I've got files. I've got 3 different hammers here along with a bench block. I'll have everything down below specific, even if I introduce some new ones that I haven't mentioned at this moment. And as I said in the post yesterday, we're going to be incorporating labradorite. Are these awesome or what? Rondelles, faceted rondelles of labradorite. I've already have it into this one. That third design that I haven't even done yet, we're gonna add that to that and see how that works. But that's just what I'm using. You use whatever inspires you and your creativity. Let's get started. So I kept these 3 designs really easy. Each of them calls for 3 inches of 16 gauge and some chain of your choice, and you get 3 different styles and designs by working through this tutorial. I've got my first craft fair coming up in the middle of next month, and so I'm trying to rebuild some of my on-hand stock. A lot of times the things on my website are made to order, so when I get an order in, I make it right away, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to make some stuff. So I'm kind of coming up with some new designs and some things to sell and have on hand for that. So you get to enjoy it, and you can take these and use them for your craft fairs as well. So each one of these designs, like I mentioned, calls for 16 gauge. I went ahead and I cut several pieces of 3 inches, and they all incorporate the same features: an arch with some chain and some beads hanging on it in some way. And of course, it's going to use something lighter to connect the chain because of the chain I chose. It's super skinny, so I had to use a really small gauge wire to connect that, but we can work through that. And of course, 20 gauge for your ear wires. First, we're going to take our bail pliers, and for this one, I wrapped around the 9mm bail, and it's just a simple bend down the middle, and bring the ends together evenly. If you have one that's a little bit longer than the other one, move the short one end out a little bit and bring that long one to it, and then you will even out your ends. Now, I do not want them kind of this horseshoe-like shape. We want it nice and straight. So I'm going to take some time to really make sure that these are nice and straight. Now that I've got it pretty much where I want it, it seems like it's coming down nice and straight. It's time for some hammering. Hammer time! So for this part, we are hammering the whole surface kind of like 50% flat. We're not going for flat, flat, flat like we're going to do on this design. We're just going to give it some surface to it. This is curving just a little bit, and I want to make sure that that is nice and straight. So anytime you notice anything that is moving out of position, stop and fix it. Because the more hammering you do, it's just going to emphasize that something isn't right in that place. And of course, this is strengthening your piece. Your earrings will be nice and strong and have a good, strong frame. I want to flatten out these ends just a little bit because I don't want this to be bulky. Because it is 16 gauge, if you go to roll this back, I mean, it'll just be this massive curl, this massive loop in the back. So what I'm trying to do is flatten it out so it's not as bulky in the back. Now, if that doesn't bother you, you can skip the hammering part, but I just wanted it a little thinner so that it wasn't so prominent. And I'm using bail pliers without the fuzz.
Oh, no, fuzz. That's fuzz.
To roll this back, but not all the way. Get it to about there, because I'm going to come back with chain nose pliers and then pinch it close. It's going to make it more subtle, and it's going to make it more low profile and smaller. That would be really hard to get that small of a loop with just some round pliers, especially with 16 gauge. So just do it halfway with whatever you have, either your bail pliers or round nose, and then pinch it the rest of the way closed so you get more of a teardrop loop there, and it's super low profile. Now let's say you hammered it so flat that now like the back side of this loop might be hanging out. You can see it coming out from the back side. Just take a needle nose file or whatever file that you have, and you can just hammer that nice and flush and smooth so none of the back is hanging out. All the little fine details is what helps your piece look professional and higher quality. Okay, now that we have our basic frame finished, it is time to move on to attached chain. I have something. I'm not sure if this is 24 or 26, and I'm using sterling silver. When you're doing a lot of hammering, you're not going to be able to do hammering on the color-coded wires because it'll just crack and cause you problems. So I'm using sterling silver. Copper would be great. And I had to find something skinny. I don't know what this is. I think it's 24 or 26, but the idea is that it had to fit through one of these chain links. So because I had to make it difficult on myself and get this chain that is super tiny, I don't know why I did that.
Why would you do that to yourself?
So I have to go with this. You go with whatever will fit in your chain. You do not have to use something skinny. And what I did for this design, the slightly longer chain is 2 inches and the shorter one on the interior is 1 3/4. Just 1 little quarter difference will make just a wonderful, subtle, slight change in the length of your chain. My hand's going to be in the way. I apologize. But what I'm doing is cutting the length that is just past the length that I want. And what I'll do to get a measurement for the next piece where I don't have to count all the lengths is that I just string it on, thread it on, however you want to say it, on a piece of wire together. I'll lay out the piece that I just cut. I'm going to hold that together so it doesn't fall off. And then I'll bring it down till I see where they match, or see where they both end together, and then cut the next length. And now I've got 2 of my 2-inch pieces. Now I just go ahead and do the same thing for my 1.25 lengths of chain. Just let that naturally hang. Let those 2 ends meet, and then cut the length that's just past it. And now I've got my inner lengths of chain, and it's as easy as that. This was back when silver was cheaper, so I'm so glad I bought a bunch of chain when it was much cheaper.
What a relief.
Taking my wire, whatever it is that happens to fit this chain, I'm going to cut off a length, just something that I can make this link with. I think I cut about 2 or 3 inches. Let's see what this is. So this is about 3 inches-ish. This, what I'm getting ready to do, is exactly like a chain link that we made many, many months ago, sometime last year. It's the exact same thing. All I'm doing is making a loop about, I don't know, 1 inch or so in, until I've got that. That's it. Now I need to connect them a little bit, and I'm going to grab it with some chain nose pliers and just make at least 2 twists. You can make another twist, or you can just take that tail and wrap it around just a little bit. And that joins those 2 together before we do this next part. We need to trim this just a little bit. And this is up to you how you want to hold this. Pick up your bail pliers once again. How do I want to hold this? I think I'm going to flip around to it going the other way. And we're going to put another loop on this end using that 2mm bail, or whatever. You can use round pliers as well. That's fine. But you know me and bail pliers. But don't close it just yet. The fuzz wants to be in the party, I'm telling you what. Now I've done this 2 ways. You can, when you make this the first loop, you can do it after you've put it onto our frame, or you can do it this way. Very, very simply with chain nose pliers. I know this goes against everything that you see in all the other videos. I'm just going to open that a little bit. Just open that a little bit and slide that on, and then press it closed. You know, we always say, don't just pull your loops open, do them to the side. Well, in this case, just don't do that. Just gently open it slightly. And then, oh my gosh. Okay, I did it. I put the wrong loop on there. Gee Louise. Put that closed loop that we've already joined together into the loop. And just press that closed. Simple as that. It goes against everything you've been taught, but that's how you got to do it. It's the easiest way to do it. Then you're not fiddling with trying to make all that happen on this frame. And this is as simple as picking up your longer piece of wire, sliding that on, picking up the shorter piece of wire and sliding that one on. And now we get to seal this side up. Take that tail and just do a simple wrap in there. It doesn't have to be fancy. It's kind of like that bird nest style. You can get as neat or as kind of just freestyle as you want on this. That's part of the design, as part of adding texture to this. And then once you get where you feel like it's enough, then bring it around to the back and trim. Just tuck your end in, give some little twists, and then one side is complete. And all you got to do is do the same thing on the other side. I've got my two other ends of my chain on the link, and now it's time just to seal that off with a couple wraps. It's nothing fancy, just kind of like a bird nest wrap. Okay, this is my back side, so I'm going to trim that, make sure that's flush, and then just press that down with a couple little twists. And then to connect that design, this is what we did here. We're going to make the connection to the ear wire very similar. It's not exact, it's kind of the same thing, but one loop is going the other way, and then we obviously have that loop at the top that connects to the ear wire. So it kind of, in a way, it mimics this design down here. I got another little length of wire here, 2 or 3 inches, except I'm going to do just a little different. I'm not going to worry about trying to make that loop. I'm just going to stick it on here. Right? It's kind of a combination of a little twist connection and what we just did with the chain. I'm not, you know, I'm not getting all fussy here because it is kind of that bird nest wrap, so we're going to just kind of keep it simple and just give some twists. It's going to be covered, so I'm not worried about that. And then just whatever excess you have, trim that off. I'm going to take some chain nose pliers. I'm using tweezer nose, make a little bend back, and then with our bail pliers, using that same 2mm bail, I'm going to put that in that corner, sitting on top of the corner, if you can see that. I'm trying to get my hand angled, and it's blurry, but can you tell where that is? It's not over here. It's sitting on top of the corner. And then just press that wire on top of that 2mm bail. Turn your pliers, try to get everything nice and straight here. Straight bail into your attachment here. And take that tail, wrap it around the bail. Now at this point, you can take those bail pliers out, grab your tweezer nose or whatever chain nose you've got, and then we're going to make that same kind of little wraps. You can make them bird nesty, or you can just make them a little more fine-tuned. I think I ended up somewhere in the middle of half bird nesty, half looking like I know what I'm doing.
I hope she knows what she's doing.
And then once you just got your wire to the back, you're going to trim. Trim. Tuck in your ends. Straighten up anything if you need to. And all you would need to do for that is to finish off with an ear wire. And you've got your first pair. We'll do a pair of ear wires towards the end. Since we are working on earrings, I want you to have, you know, all the elements to the pieces. So we'll go over that at the end. Let's move on to our next style. So I have another 3-inch piece of 16 gauge. But I'm going to move it to the centimeters. It's almost an 8 centimeters. And I'm going to take my bail pliers, the 7mm, just for a little something different. And where it's around the 4.5 centimeter, that's where I'm going to make a bend. So we get this kind of, one side's a little bit longer than the other. Now you do kind of what you want to do. This is just where I put it. Have fun with it and make your own designs. And I'm bending around the 7mm until we've got this kind of shape going on. Same deal. You're going to want to take your time to make sure things are straight. Okay, time for hammering. I'm so excited to do this because now I'll have the matching one for that one. It got late last night and I just said, We'll just do it together tomorrow. That's another reason why the third design is not done. I'm like, oh no, it's getting so late, I don't have time to do it. I'm like, I know, we're just gonna do it together and see what happens. So for this one, it's a totally different connection. I flattened these into paddles and used the hole punch tool to make the connections and used a larger chain. Same deal, I'm going to give it just a nice flattening, gentle flattening all the way around. Before I flatten out the ends, I want to give a nice end to the wire, because when you start flattening out with your hammer, every little nick or burr or roughness on the end of your wire will show up when we hammer out these paddles. Take your chasing hammer or whatever good hammer you got, and we're just going to flatten out these ends. And you saw how I was moving it around. Whenever I saw an area that needed to come out more, that's where you want to hit. Like slightly in here needs to come out just a little bit. So that's where I will try to aim my hammer, strike and pull out. And that finished off that outer edge. Let's do that on the other side. I found that I was hitting the other side a little bit, so I just opened it up a little bit so I could have better access to the side. Okay, those are looking pretty good. You see how, because we took the little extra time to sand it previously, before we started hammering, you have kind of a clean paddle already. So I'm just going to bend this back into position a little bit. All right, let's clean up the shape of this paddle. If you've got needle files or maybe even one of these big ones. I have one of these big, they're kind of difficult to use, but they do have a rougher tooth on them and can really get in there. But they're a little more, I don't know, cumbersome, but they are effective. Anything you got bulging out, or say you just had struggles with the hammering and you've got some misshapes, you can just take your file, take that time to create the shape that you want. And plus, we need to make sure we don't have any sharp edges. Okay, now I want to pre-mark before I hole punch. I'm going to find the center. If you're using a hole punch, make sure your paddle is big enough to make the hole and not go into the edge or near the edge of your paddle that you've hammered out. These are from Beadsmith. They work fine. I think there might be better options, but they do work fine. The hardest thing I find, and you'll see in a minute, is getting it back off the pliers, but it does well. Okay, so it has this little peg that comes out that's going to actually make the punch, and I just try to line that up with that mark that I made as best I can. Just making sure that peg is matched up with my dot that I made. I think I've got it. And I grip with both hands and just give it a nice gentle squeeze. This is the hardest part, is getting it back off. Now I have used WD-40. I've done all these different things to get it back off, and you just have to fool with it. There. And you see how it's it's slightly wonky. What I'll do is take my nylon hammer and hammer on that and really strengthen that area and make it nice and flat again. And there we have our little hole punched ends. Let's add a little bit of chain and some labradorite rondelles. Now for this little bit, I am using, this one is 3.5 millimeters. Just round cable, Fire Mountain Gems. The other one is from Fire Mountain Gems as well. That one was 1.2 millimeters. So the size matters. So we're going to use a little bit of this, and it's going to be wonderful to fit in that distance to the hole. So, and I cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lengths. And for this one, I'm not going to go to the 8th one and just cut it. I do need to open one of these links kind of like a jump ring. So I'm going to go to the 7th one and just cut that one, use it like a jump ring. Slide that in the hole. And close up that chain just as if it were a jump ring. And then that little piece of chain is on there. So I've got a couple of pieces of wire that I already know fit into the beads that we're going to use. You use the largest gauge that will accommodate your beads. That's what I always say, just for structure and strength. So, and I think it's 22 or 24 gauge. I don't know.
I don't know.
And I start off by putting a very simple, very small bend back on the end of this wire. This is going to create a head pin. You do not need to buy head pins. You can just make your own. As simple and as understated as this one, or like you saw in these drops. You can make them kind of fancy like that. The other thing I did was that I used these Delica beads as spacers. So I'm going to need a couple of those. It's such a lovely, I just love that color. So I started off with one of these. And these are, I believe they're 8 millimeter rondelles of labradorite. Drop one of those on, another Delica, or any other kind of spacer you have. Another, that one's got some crazy like yellow on the one side, and then it was, look at that. So amazing. And this one's just kind of more clear, subtle colors. Each one is just so different. I love that. And then finish off with one more of these Delicas. I went ahead and prepared both of them. Let's go ahead and attach them to our frame. Again, I'm back with my chain nose. I'm going to place my pliers just above that last little Delica, do a bend back. And that's just going to give us the tiniest little bit of neck to do some wraps in. You can do bail pliers or your round nose pliers. Slip that into that little neck. Bend right over that bail. Twist, turn, and then wrap that around. Line things up. And before we start doing our wraps, this is where we're going to attach. Back with some chain nose pliers. Going to put that right over that loop. Make that little space. And then put in our wraps. If you are using these Delica beads as spacers, be very careful when you are cinching down these wraps and making them nice and neat, because you do not want to crack your beads.
Actually, how I know.
Before I get too carried away, I'm just going to trim this off and be done. Saving all my silver pieces so that I can melt them down. I'm in the process of making my own wire. I got a rolling mill the other day. So I've got one side on. Let's do the other one. Bend back, pick up your round nose or your bail pliers right in that neck, over, twist and turn, pull around the neck, And then slide on your last link of your chain. Hold that loop with your pliers and then put in your wraps. Trim and tuck in. And here is our match to the other earring. We will do that ear wire. I'm going to save that for last. Let's move on to our third design that I've never done before, and we're just going to see what happens. Back with 3 inches of 16 gauge. I have to decide, I've used 9, I've used 7. How about we go down to 5 millimeters for this crossover loop at the top? I would do 5 or 7. I want to see what the 5 looks like. And press around, but this time I thought about crossing over. I think I'll just take it off and pull it and just kind of work this shape with my hands. Kind of curl it a little bit. Oh, these are going to be quite dramatic. So if you don't, I'm seeing the wire here with the stone. So if you don't want it so big, how about 2 inches and use an even smaller bail? So you can totally make this how you want it. I could pull this tighter just a little bit. Now the question is, should we do this little rollback connection, or should I do the flattening? Oh, what would look better? I think this simple rollback is going to be more elegant. I think I'm going to do that. But that also does require a little bit of hammering on the ends. Let me get my bench block and my hammer. I'm going to hammer out these ends a little bit. I think I'm going to slide this to the end of to the edge of my bench block. All right, so I've got those hammered out to the way I like them. And we're going to do the same rollback as we did on this pair of earrings. Using that 2 millimeter bail just to get the curl going. All right, so we've kind of got it like that. Then I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and pinch it closed. And you'll have that, you'll have that on the one side. Just do the same on the other. And if anything is hanging out, any of your hammering is hanging out, or anything sharp, take that time to sand and file. Ooh, this is going to be so lovely and dramatic. So like I mentioned before, if you don't want it so big, just change those measurements, maybe 2 inches. Maybe use a 4 millimeter part of the bail. Totally make it as big or as small as you want. Now I have to determine how much wire do I think I'm going to need. I want it to, I'm going to have the beads in there too, so I have to think about that. The beads are going to take up space. So maybe I only need, oh gosh. It needs to be taut so that it doesn't like just form a V. How about we do the bead link first? I'm going to do the bead link first and then determine how much of these links I'll need on either side to make the connection. I'm going to cut a little bit more of this wire to make this bead link. Let's grab my beads here. What do I want to do? I think I might do a little something different by, this one's boring. By putting a central larger one, and if you notice I have a couple smaller ones. Let me show you while I'm at it. I made these copper pair, and just to make it, instead of just like a stack of the same size bead, these are both rondelles, but as you can see, one is larger than the other. It just kind of made like a nugget look. So I think I'm going to do the same thing here as well. I did not put spacers. I just put them together so that it really had that nugget. Look at that. You see that? Let's see if I can get that on the outside. Yes, let's put that on the outside. Wow. There's one side more pretty. I don't think it matters. And then we're going to put this little nugget here in the middle. I think that will be much more elegant. I'm just going to bend there, just to hold those on, because if you ever had it on there and just they all go flying off, just put a little bend there to start. And then we can put the opposite bend on the other. I am going, I am going to use some round nose for this to make the smallest little loop that I can. Bend that over, twist and turn. But I definitely want to do a wrap to really make sure that this is secure. I'm thinking, I'm not going to close that off yet. Let me go ahead and do the same thing on this side, because I don't want to cause any kind of weakness in my chain. So if I don't have to cut the chain link, I don't want to cut it. So I'm going to wait. I'm going to get these on here. Oops. I'm going to get these on here just as a placeholder so I can determine how much of this that I'm going to need. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I'm going to do 6 links. So that means I am going to have to cut the 7th one because I want to keep these links whole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cut the 7th one. I've got that one, and let me do this one. 1, 2, 3, 6, and 7. Okay. Now, oh my goodness, this is so exciting. I've never, now have I done this? I can't remember if I've made something for the first time with you or not. I think maybe I have once. I just really love that. Okay, I've got the one side. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We learn something on the fly together. Let me not push that down just yet. I want to make sure I can get a little couple wraps over here. I think I'll be able to get a couple. Oh my gosh, did you see what I almost did? Man, I almost closed that up without putting the chain on. Something didn't seem right. I bet you all were screaming, Carrie, no! Oh my goodness. Yes, yes, that's perfect. Okay, cool. And remember, those little turned back connections, maybe we can just gently pull them open to connect the ends of this chain. So it's going to be just fine. Let me go ahead and trim. Not trim the chain. Whew. Have you ever trimmed through something so much that you cut what you didn't want to cut? So heartbreaking. All right, time to find out, does this sit properly? I'm going to open one end, slide on that link, close that up. I've got my other end open. I'm just going to let this, hopefully this chain is naturally falling so it's not twisted. Oh my gosh, it's absolutely perfect. Make sure that's in there. Make sure that little piece of chain is going to be locked in within this loop before I close it down. Oh my goodness. That is perfect. And say you want it to hang a little bit more, you want it to come down a little bit more, you need to adjust like it's, you can just pull this a little bit and adjust the length, or it needs to come, oh, it's too saggy, pull these ends up and that will help it sit where you want it to sit. Oh my goodness. I'm loving that. Ew. Let's make ear wires. For my ear wires, I cut about 1 7/8 inch. All right, let's make a couple of ear wires. Back with bail pliers, I'm using the 2mm bail that I find on these Beadsmith pliers. We're going to make that little connecting loop that's going to attach to the ear ring. I'm holding that very tight. I just want to make a loop until it comes back around and touches that wire again. And then I'm going to use the 9mm bail to make the part of the ear wire that goes in your earlobe. Just bring that on around. And just put that little bend back on your end of your ear wires if you would like. Now we have 2 matching ear wires and we can strengthen these and add a little texture. And right on the curve, we're going to flatten it. I'm going to open that up like a barn door. I'm going to slip on this brand new Did It Together design. Super sweet. And then we'll just add this. And there we have that. Very, very dramatic. Now, again, you can make this as long as short as you want. If you don't want it 3 inches, cut everything back to 2 inches. Maybe shorten the length of the chain. You can just do 1 bead if you'd rather. These are all, make them as large, dramatic, or as simple as you would like. All of them are very light, but they have a lot of, hey, look at me, without being heavy on your ear. I love that combination, something that has impact, something that has presence, but it's super light and comfortable to wear on your ear. And every single one of these used the same basic shape of an arch that is nice and even. Oh, I've got this one backwards. That's even, more uniform, one that is got a little fun, got a little off-balance quality there to it, and definitely one that is very elegant and we did it together. Oh my goodness, I had so much fun doing that, not knowing what was going to happen, and it turned out great. I would love to hear what bead that you would like to use. Do you like labradorite? What are some of your favorite beads? Where do you get your beads? A lot of people ask that. They want great places to buy beads. And like I've mentioned many a times, I inherited all my beads. These labradorites, I did not buy those. My wonderful late boss, Sally Buchanan, her husband, who is now in glory with her, he gave me all of her beads, all of her supplies, like these. These are hers. How sweet is it that I get to use these that were hers? So, and like I mentioned, I'm doing my very first craft fair coming up in November. I just been making a couple bracelets. My daughter, if you want to know what like the young people are liking, she loved this bracelet. It's just a mix of these tube beads and all different kinds of gemstones, semi-precious gemstones. She liked that how it was kind of small. It made her feel like, I want to go hiking. She loved that. And she loved this one too because it was kind of this ombre look. She loved that. So that's a couple other things that I was working on. And of course, these earrings that uses that little nugget style of stacking a smaller rondelle with a fat one and then another small one to make that little nugget look. So take some of these design elements. Maybe you wanted to know how to use the hole punch. Now you know how to use a hole punch. Now you know how to take a basic shape with some chain and create 3 different looks from all the same materials. So have fun with it, make some beautiful things, sell them. I would love to find out what you make with these simple designs, and I'll see you again next week for Tutorial Tuesday. I don't know what I'm saying, I gotta start over. Bother, what are they? Can't remember. What did I do? Oh my gosh, where is that chain? Okay, whatever. Where's my ruler? Where the heck are my cutters? Stupid. Jeez Louise. Just be quiet. Oh, shoot, you ding-dong? Whatever, just put it on. Yay. Oh, my. Come on, yo. Good Googa Mooga. Why is everything twisted up? Precious. Good grief, come on. My goodness. Okay. I don't know what I'm saying now.